All right, it's 3 minutes after, so let's get started. Welcome everybody to the September 16th SIG Multicluster call. So today we don't have any topics, but I went through the open issues and pull requests, and I did a few to the scrub, and I guess Arthur added the last one as well. And the first one I wanted to go over is the placement decision API that Mike reworked the last couple of weeks and that we've been discussing quite a bit. So one significant change is the diagram here. Actually, Mike, do you want to walk us through the changes?
I can drive through the change. Yeah, I can share my screen, but you're pointing at exactly to the right place. That's where we added the left side of the equation, right? Based on last week's community meeting, kind of clarify where the request is coming from and why there's kind of a disconnect between the placement and the workload, and how the current consumers such as Cube and Argos work. So on the far left side, you have the initiator. And the initiator can be a human or high-level system or high-level controller. And then now you kind of have a divide. The initiator knows the placement. The placement is kind of the request, like the scheduling, like where you want to put your workload to. And then the initiator also has the workload. He knows what he wants to apply to for that placement. So in essence, he has what he is that he wants to apply and where he is he wants to apply, but he doesn't know where it is. He has where as in the question. And then the placement decision in the same chart on the right as before kind of provides that answer, right? The placement decision gives the initiator the answer to where it is those workloads should be applied to. And then the workload, I think Ryan added the placement key. So the placement key can look up the placement, using the placement key can kind of associate with the placement decision. And that's how the consumer knows, oh, for this workload it should use this placement key to get these placement decisions, and these are the clusters that I should perform on actions on. And that's the improvement to the diagram itself. And then if you scroll down a bit, please, and then there's a scroll, yes, placement key here. That's the new thing that I think Ryan added. It helps correlate between the placement request with the actual workload. And then he defined the key here in the label. It's meant to be applied to the workload so that the workload can have a thing that the controller can look up. The consumer controller can look up. And then in the flow examples, yeah, right there, so there were quite a bit of confusion around actual examples. I don't want to go into all the nitty details, but we listed all the current usage, which is Argo CD and the multi-queue, and that's how the Argo CD and multi-queue can consume the placement decision. So hopefully that answers some of the questions. And are there any? And then, oh yes, there's another. I added this best available cluster fold because that's also something that was discussed in the last meeting, where it's one of the most basic use case. The scheduler continuing to publish or update the placement decision, and then the consumer just need to, if the consumer needs to act on that, it just ticks it, kind of like a queue, and then perform the action on it. So those are the majority updates. Hopefully Unfortunately, Laura and Jeremy is not here in the call, but hopefully they'll have time to review it async and then see what their feedbacks are. That's it for me.
Yeah, thanks. I'm just curious about the last thing you mentioned there, the best available cluster flow is the idea there that in some scenarios, the placement decision might be updated even after the workload's actually started.
Yes. Oh, I
Right.
guess I didn't give a bullet on that. Yes, you're right. So I assume that, and it's the same for the Argo CD and the Cube case. When you use up a placement decision, and then it kind of affects the cluster's available resources, and then it might affect the metrics or whatever that's impacting the scheduler on publishing the placement decision. So the most available one after the consumer act on it will get updated, but it's done by the scheduler. So maybe I will clarify that point. Is that so? It's not a static list at all. It's a dynamic list.
Maybe
Oh,
that's the key point to mention, and the fact that it changes. And I think maybe to Ian, to your question, it's dependent on the consumer implementation whether it does something with the fact that the list changed or it allows the workload to complete.
okay. So is that related? Well, just taking a step back, a typical problem that you run into quickly with sort of naive scheduler implementations that try to update based on the current state is that you schedule a workload somewhere and the workload consumes resources wherever it's scheduled, and maybe the host cluster no longer becomes the desirable cluster for the workload as a result of that, which is nonsensical because the workload's usage resource should actually be not taken into account for the scheduling decision. Does it have anything to do with that, or is it just completely separate and it's more like a using placement decisions to reflect availability for future decisions?
Mike, you want to comment, or I'll comment?
Yeah, Josh, go ahead. I
I
think
mean,
it's
I
more,
would say it's the latter you
yeah.
described. Is to me,
Okay.
all of that is like what you do with the updated placement is the consumer's, like the implementation's consumer decision. Like whoever implemented both the placement and the consumer work that's deciding how it wants to use that. And so I think the point was that the placement decision will dynamically update. Whether the workload allows that to make a change or not is in their the workload implementation, not the placement decision itself. And I guess maybe that needs to be called.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That makes sense because of the separate roles. Okay. Yeah, because the scheduler is supposed to be independent from the orchestrator. Yeah, I can see where that would come from then. Right. Yeah, it makes sense in that context.
So maybe we get Mike can clean up. We can clean up the wording there to be a little more explicit.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so I haven't had much time to look at the updated kit, but I'll make sure to give it a proper review and get Jeremy to take a look at it as well.
Stedman,
But if
sorry,
anybody,
could you
sorry,
scroll up a tiny bit? Can you scroll up a tiny bit?
up.
Up a little bit more. I think I also added this section here. Scroll up a tiny bit more. Yes, I think I also added this bit because it was discussed in the last meeting as well. Like, why are we defining the placement decision before the standardized placement API? Because that's essentially the essence of the cap, right? So please take a look at this section as well. I
Yeah.
added some quick bullets there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll reread it as a whole because that's another important aspect of reviewing when keps are, well, it's fairly normal, right? The keps get updated, and sometimes we see keps where some sections get updated, but then other sections become inconsistent. So I always try to look at it as a whole. But thanks anyway for all the updates. Are there any other questions on this one, or shall we move on to the next? I'll take silence as no. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, so the next one is the property ladder, and this is actually waiting for Ryan, who isn't in the call, so I'll ping him directly. Yeah, because the last updates we're just asking him for to do this. Okay, and then the next one. So this was Arthur's attempt to find out whether, well, what people are using service imports for as input to the, well, deciding whether we actually go ahead with merging everything to root, or so the three options that Arthur had highlighted in the Slack discussion a few weeks ago. I guess it's still weeks and not quite months yet, but whereas
I think there is like the last triage note of Laura that is well,
yeah,
like,
listed.
summarizing.
Yes, yeah. So merge everything to root, which was the initial proposal, just move the IPs or do nothing. And so, yeah, so we'd reached, so Rainbow Mango added to the discussion because we were looking for feedback from Karmada as well. And yeah, so going back on why we're trying to do this, and that's where things are. And Rainbow Mango isn't in the call, so I'm not sure there's not much we can actually do here.
Yeah, well, I mean, last time, because of the status that we added to service imports, like some people that were maybe in favor of merging, like swapped to, is it really worth it?
Yeah,
and,
because now we have status with conditions, and conditions don't really, well, it feels weird to have conditions in
the root,
an object without spec status. Yeah. Yeah, okay, but so you've answered Rainbow Mango's question, so let's wait for his response. The next one was the geostack policies and fields. So what was the status on this one? All right. Yes. So there's been discussion just today that I haven't had a chance to catch up on.
But Mike added like look good to me on it, and
yes, that was what. Yeah, we were waiting
against.
for. Yeah, that's what we were waiting for. But then Antonio pitched in.
Yeah, basically explaining like how service import fields are. Like in regards to service and all of that. But he asked at the end a good question about like the max len of the IP families that you also pointed out months ago, I think. But maybe we would have like more input because it's in SIG network, so we probably have the context on why it's not in service, and maybe we should add it there actually.
Yeah, so let's wait for his feedback. And he pinged Tim Hawken as well, who might have some interesting takes on this. So, okay, so things are moving there anyway after quite a long time. Yeah, well, I'll try to make sure we don't get sidetracked anymore. And then this is the one that you added as well, the label with the CRD version. And if I remember correctly, this is on me, I think, because you had a question about.
No, I think we discussed it a few
tagging.
weeks ago. Like it was about, do we change the version on the release or do we change an HPR? And you were saying HPR. I think you left
Yes.
even a comment.
Yeah, but then wasn't there a comment somewhere? So obviously not here because I can't see it, but about having to tag a release pretty much with every change.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was also a bit for me, I guess, because if we were having the version of like the project on the CRDs, it means that we would need to have more frequent change, but you are also doing more frequent change, so it's not a huge deal, I guess. But
Yeah, as long as we can keep that going. Yeah. It remains to be seen too whether there are how frequent actual changes to this end up being.
I mean, to be honest,
to the CRD.
Yeah, to be honest, because we are in 0.1.0, we could still like rethink it at some point. Like,
yeah,
if we want to change it to release note, we do a max of the two version and we change one thing and whatever.
Yeah, we can figure out the mechanics of that.
There will just be one version that is bumped from, I don't know, probably 0.1 to 0.3 or something like that, but it's not a huge deal.
Yeah. Okay, and Ryan LGTM'd it. Yeah, so add that to my short-term to-do list.
Okay, cool, thanks.
And yeah, that's it, I think. So I'll open the floor if anybody has any topic to bring up or something, another PR or issue that's open that we need to discuss that we haven't gone over in the scrub.
There is still the document about MCS cluster selection that Zing like rolling out, but part of that, I don't know if you want to discuss now. It's more homework.
Yeah, that is definitely homework for me. Yeah, well, you presented it in the call already. It's this one here.
Yeah, unfortunately, you were not here. I think we were.
No, yeah, I wasn't. But we can. So let's see.
Well, if you have question, I'm all ears. But
yeah. But I haven't actually.
No worries.
Properly looked at it, so it's up to you. Either I think it would be more productive for me to just read it properly and then either bring up questions in a future call or ping you, or leave comments in the doc. But that's a reminder too for other people to look at this. Yeah, there's just one thing, like in the doc. Well, basically, we don't have anything, and I put it all in the doc that it's a green field and all of that. But maybe like the traffic distribution field. Well, if we agree on the general approach that we should add like the traffic distribution field in some way, maybe we should add it like sooner than all the API all the rest of the API change, basically. Like for instance, let's say we don't change the API and want to go to VR1 beta 1 after like the few other PRs are merged. Maybe we should also considering like the service traffic distribution field to add it before going to beta 1 because it's a small thing. And but apart from that, this is more long-term-ish. So and would probably need like going to SIG network and probably also gateway API peoples. So yeah, this is the sort of thing where it would probably be good to get some API review, because I'm not sure they're entirely happy with this in the service API. So, well, so traffic distribution like this, at least, maybe, but then the topology keys didn't really work out.
Yeah, but
all that well either. So
I know some people like commented a bit that they are in favor of like the first proposal, but I think we are in a slightly different situation. Because it's not like per host, it's per cluster. So it's like a way bigger range that is more like, how can I say that? Like, because for instance, on the endpoint slice, they needed to add like the host info or where it's running and all of that. And we don't really have this info. We just like know this is cluster A and select based on potentially labels of about API. So yeah, I think like performance-wise and all of that, we are not in the same situation as them. And we could potentially do something more expressive. Plus also, like about API is not like super defined in terms of what properties we will need to have. So for instance, if you scroll back up to proposal 1, well, like prefer same continent, for instance, we will need to have like a property same continent. And does it make sense to have a property continent, for instance? Yes and no, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know right now, off the top of my head. So I'll like I said, no, I know. I'm just so yeah, I'll take a proper look at this as well. And yeah, we can. So now that we've got hopefully that we've got the placement decision API closer to a decision, maybe we can make this the next focus of the calls.
That sounds nice, on my part at least.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No surprise there, I think. Yeah. But yeah, if nobody else has any other topics.
I only had a small assumption that cost is currently not something that we're including in the multi-cluster APIs or specs right now. But it could be an attribute of work in theory. But it's just so just as I was writing for the thing for Mike, I figured that could be a driver for some of the scheduling decisions. But yeah, I don't think it's currently in the other APIs or specs, and I don't know if it should be there. It's just another property. Yeah, exactly. Carpenter, multi-carpenter or something. But yeah, that is a thing because we, for example, run everything on Spot, and because it is possible because of the orchestration. In theory, you would have instead of having an in-cluster cost-based scheduling, you could have cross or multi-cluster cost-based scheduling as well. But then again, like all the other essentially ad hoc thoughts that I wrote in chat, they would still be up for consideration to the consumer or the implementer, because you would of course want to make that trade-off only if it's worth rescheduling or transplanting. I can imagine if you have the context of a large language model copying all over the place, that might not be worth it. But if it's just a couple of web services, then it might be worth it. So you get a lot more. It becomes a much bigger stack essentially.
Yeah, and it's also relevant. Well, so that's relevant so for sort of job scheduling type decisions where you have a workload that's going to take a certain amount of resources and you can cost them. But then it could also be relevant for the cluster selection aspect of things, where you might have a service that's available on a bunch of different clusters, but it will cost you a different amount to use it in different places. And so at the service selection, well, service resolution time, you might also want to take cost into account.
Yeah, it's essentially, I think it's one of the taint specs where it also says it's considered during scheduling, but not considered during operation. So you don't end up with a state that's constantly being shoved around.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
but
one
you
of
could
the
have
things.
you could have something. Well, I guess it's slightly similar to the way you could define zones, for example. You could have
Yeah.
some way of saying this cluster is more expensive, and so I only want to use it as a measure of last resort, or in general. Yeah, so cost isn't explicit. It appears in other ways where you say, I don't want to go and talk to another continent because that's expensive, or maybe some other. But then, well, yeah. So you never get the actual cost in dollar terms or whatever, and it
No, it will
appears
be
in
a
other ways. So maybe,
priority based,
yeah,
or
it's
if it's just
priority
matched
based. Yeah,
without. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
But
same, I
then,
could imagine it goes for ephemerality as well, or with surge or
yeah,
burst loads, where you might say, well, if I have to burst, then fine, I'll do the more expensive
yeah,
option.
just yeah,
Yeah, or if there's a
yeah,
cluster where I know that the cluster has an existence deadline for whatever reason, then I might not want to schedule ephemeral or non-ephemeral jobs on the ephemeral cluster. But then again, that's just
yeah,
property matching in a way.
yes, yeah, and not explicit cost. Yeah.
No, no.
And there's another, yeah, and in some scenarios too, but then you'd have to express that in some other way. You want to do something regardless of cost. For example, when you're replicating data, then you want to make sure that everything's available everywhere, even though the transfers might cost you a lot. But then that's something you'd express differently. But to go back to I think your initial point, I don't think this would appear as such in the placement decision, because placement decision is opaque. Well, it only records the decision, not why. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
really matter
that makes
there.
sense. It wouldn't be necessarily part of the decision information itself, but it could possibly influence the quantity or the frequency of decisions
Yeah,
where
yeah,
the best cluster, the best fit might change, and maybe you want
yeah,
to respond to the fact that the fit changed, or maybe you don't. But that is something that makes it slightly more dynamic than it might seem at
yeah.
first face value.
So
So yeah.
that might be worth adding to the PR then, as a just to mention that it's something to bear in mind. It won't appear explicitly in the way the KEP's done, but in the scenarios that are imagined where the placement decisions might be updated, that's one reason to do it. One sort of scenario where this would be useful.
It might definitely matter to the implementers and the consumers as well,
Yes.
because regardless of the spec, it is something that maybe their code paths.
That they'd have to take into account.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah, because if you start designing something that takes placement decisions as a one-time only thing that you consume, then you're a bit stuck if you realize that you actually want to be able to move things around if the cost is worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, you also get this thing where if you can start predicting if the best fit is constantly flapping, or you know that at certain time periods the chances of them getting swapped around is higher, you might start to be able to anticipate that or something like that. But yeah, that is something that would have to be taken into account when building it.
Yeah, or you might want to just delay executing for a little while because you know that spot pricing is liable to drop.
Yeah, or you know that there is going to be some unknown, some headroom, and you just wanted to settle first before you can make sure that the new decision or the new best fit is actually going to stay the new best fit, and it's not just going to pop off for 1 minute and then go back into not being the best fit. That would also be a sad day for scheduling.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, and
I'll make a comment if I don't forget to do it this time, because I was intending to do it last time, but then life happened. But yeah, I'll go and put a comment in there. But I think Mike already replied in the chat, so I think we're not losing the thoughts into nothingness. So yeah, it should be in the comment soon. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and so Ryan joined the call and added 2 topics. So there's actually one here that I wanted to ping you about, Ryan. I think it's this one. Yeah, the ladder.
Yeah, it's related to that traffic thing. Yeah, a month ago I promised to clean this up, but again life happened. Yeah, I'll clean this up. I think high level idea was instead of voting, I think the idea currently we said was we just go by the implementations, right? So basically,
Yeah, well, voting by implementations, effectively. Voting by doing rather than actually having a vote.
yeah. That seems to make sense and easier to measure. Yeah, that's the high level ideas. I will clean that up.
So then cluster inventory API.
So yeah, so sorry, I kind of didn't fully look into all the details of the credential part. For this one, basically, I realized one of the reasons was I was kind of confused in the beginning on exactly the mechanism. So after looking into this a little bit, there's a KP, but this one for me is a lot easier to explain. If you can just go to its Go type, the API one, the cluster profile, the top one, the first one. Yeah, basically that's to me it's easiest to see. Or maybe you can show the whole file. It's hard to see just the if you click on the right, there's a view file.
Did something, but then there it is.
Like that slow. So if you scroll down to 70-ish lines, so in our here in our current in the KP in the cluster profile status, we added one field is cluster. It was called cluster. It was called credential provider, line 76. So I was a little bit confused on what actually it does or what type of credential it provides. It turns out if you look down, it actually just contains one thing, line 86. It is a cluster. It's a predefined in client Go. It's a cluster. That cluster actually that structure actually doesn't provide any credentials there. What it does is, I don't know how easy it is to navigate to that structure, but that structure basically contains server address, proxy URL, server side certs, things like that. So and in that structure, the comment says clearly this provides information on how to connect to that cluster. So it's purely a cluster property instead of a credential thing. So which makes totally sense that it sits in the cluster profile status. So this structure inside the cluster status profile status makes total sense because it doesn't matter who you are. It's a part of it's a property part of cluster. The only thing confused me was it was called credential provider, but not really. That's why basically this PR just changed its name to what it is. It is a cluster. I mean, I'm not the best guy to name, but I did ask GPT, whatever GPT, your favorite AI tools. So it gave me a few names. So I picked one like class access provider. Totally open to suggestions. But the idea is it provides you a way to connect to the tell you the details information.
Yeah, it tells you how to connect. It doesn't give you the auth to connect to it, but it tells you where to go. It's like a URL.
Nothing to do with auth. Yeah, and if you click onto the package and if you click on the left side, there's a package. The left side, the left panel. I'm just trying to show you how currently this one is getting used because I finally figured out. And if you click credential, there's a config. Yeah, config. So the confusing part here is actually a credential part. So here is actually a credential provider. That's why I was confused. There were credential provider inside, a credential provider outside. Why you have like two credentials? This is actually the real credential provider. And if you scroll down, the line 54 is the function. You actually get the credential. This is the one that actually get credential. So this credential provider combined with, I always know it's credential provider combined with the cluster profile, but I didn't fully get why they're outside there's a credential provider, inside there's a credential provider. How do they work each other? But now I figure out, at least I think it's pretty clear. The outside is the exact command config. Basically, it's the exact config in a cookie config.
Yeah, this one here.
Yeah. So that makes this flow to me makes a lot more sense. It used to be the line 54, the variable is called the credential provider, some provider, and you get another provider. You put two providers together. It's kind of now I think it's much clearer. We get class accessor, we get execute, combine them together. Now we get the real REST config. That's basically the idea. So I think I understand it's a little bit late. I wish I had that time to figure this out a little bit earlier, but it's just a rename change. Other than that, there's not much. So hopefully we can get this resolved soon, and then I will update the cap accordingly. The cap pretty much mentioned this correctly. It's just the need a little bit more precise exactly how does these two providers work.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Thanks. And then the placement decision kit.
Yeah, this basically Mike is here. So we had a discussion last time about cluster scheduling decision, and I think the AI was to add the flow, so
we went over this at the start of the call.
Okay. Then never mind. I didn't see it in the in this one. Then I think it's any remaining questions?
I don't think so. No, I'll just make sure that Jeremy takes a look at it as well, and I'll review it all again just to make sure the whole thing is consistent too.
Okay.
But I think this is getting close to done.
Okay, cool. Sorry about not joining earlier.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, that's it from me. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Anyone else? Okay, so thank you everybody for participating, and I'll wish you a good rest of the day, good rest of the week, and I'll see you. Well, I'll actually not be around next week, but the week after that. Okay, see you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.